Chris Lee and Alfred Ezman of Southeastern 14 here to talk about the College Station Regional. Could be a rematch between Texas and Texas A&M at some point. We'll talk about that, as well as the other teams in this regional, Louisiana and Grambling. Before we do that, reminder, our channel brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, the NBA, and NHL playoffs. All the latest news, odds, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on all the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Well, Alfred, interesting regional. I mean, who could have guessed that the committee would have matched up Texas and Texas A&M? Something that we'll not be able to do next year when Texas is in the SEC, but we get a treat for now, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no matter what the sport is, that's one of the biggest rivalries, one of the ticket rivalries in all of college sports. So they knew what they were doing, and I think they had one last year to do it. So they were like, why not? Let's just throw them together.
Well, let's talk about the favorites in this regional. That, of course, Texas A&M, as we'll show you some things on the Aggies here. It's been a day for our technology department, hasn't it?
Yes,
we got some more high-end stuff here for those of you watching the podcast with these graphics. These are just give the guy who did this a raise. Let me just tell you that. All right, let's look at the Aggies lineup, and boy, was it a good one. Three guys with 20-plus home runs. They got Jackson Appel, who was the first team All-SEC catcher, great defender, great hitter, Ivy League transfer. I think they were so good defensively. Travis Chestnut at second, a guy that crashed the party in the lineup late, played well. Ali Camarillo, offense tailed off late in the year, but just such a good addition for them. And then that outfield, probably the best in the country. Caden Sorrell, once he got the job, or I think it's Sorrell, was a great defender in left, hit the ball pretty well. And then Jay Slavolette, Braden Montgomery. There's not a better combo. It's probably not a better outfield in the country, but that center field, or that right field, center field combo of Lavalette and Montgomery was pretty electric. I know Montgomery tailed off late with the bat, but my goodness, this team has got everything. It's got power. It can run just a little bit. It's got handedness. I mean, you might like the bench to be a little deeper. Ryan Targach, I'm not sure what happened to that kid. He was All-SEC guy, or that level 2 years ago. Big power. Just wasn't a good year for him. But, I mean, my goodness, this lineup. And Ted Burton, the Michigan transfer, was great all year. When this lineup all came together, it was a sight to behold, Alfred.
Yeah, it was. And they kind of had a pretty brief Hoover for what I thought they would have had. But regardless of that, top to bottom, they get it done hitting. And, that starts with Appel. And, I think everyone knew what we were going to get out of Braden Montgomery when he transferred there from Stanford. He was just one of the premier Pac-12 players. And here he is now. I think that's 26 home runs on the season, on-base percentage of 450, right around 450. Lavalette's had a great year as well. That is, I agree with you. As far as outfields go, I don't think you get it better than Texas A&M. The Hayden Schott, I don't know, shot or shoot, however you say it. I'm sorry. Shot. Thank you. Okay. Hayden Schott, DH. He had a half decent Hoover. On base percentage all year was good. Slugging's pretty good as well. So top to bottom, they have a tough lineup, and you're going to have to pitch your A game if you're one of these teams with them in College Station.
Well, they got pitching too. Ryan Prager, their lefty, who was their one all year, one of the best starters in the entire country. Tailed off a little bit late, but started just, he wasn't going to be able to keep up the numbers he posted early because nobody could, other than maybe Hagen Smith. But great lefty, draft prospect, could go in the first couple of rounds. It got interesting for them afterwards because their bullpen, in my mind, was the best in the league. Evan Aschenbeck, it just was incredible. You can see the numbers in front of you. Doesn't walk anybody, doesn't give up home runs for the most part, just doesn't give up a lot of base runners. They're 2 and 3, though. Justin Lampkin and Tanner Jones really struggled down the stretch. That prompted Jim Schlossnagle to remove Shane Sadeo, who was a premium lefty, out of their pen, put him in the rotation. And so that's kind of interesting because put that aside for a minute, that leaves their bullpen a little sort of lefties outside of Aschenbeck who can cover a lot of innings. I don't know if they'll move Justin Lampkin back to the pen. I would presume he would start this weekend. Tanner Jones just did not pitch well late, and I guess he'll pitch out of the pen. I'll be interesting to see what Jim Schlossnagle does. We do that on a Wednesday. I hadn't checked to see if he's an ounce of pitching, but they've got probably the worst number 4 seed in the tournament in Grambling. If you can get by and win that one, then you can maybe throw Prager and Sadeo later. And good luck beating the Aggies at that point with that lineup and with that bullpen. And you can see the numbers yourself. I mean, Brad Rudis, Josh Stewart, although he's a little bit wild, or actually Stewart's not the guy with the wild. Brock Peary's the guy I'm thinking of. The bullpen can have some trouble throwing strikes at times, but they're not easy to hit. This is a deep pitching staff. I'm just going to be very interested to see what the composition looks like and who pitches in what role.
Yeah, and poor Grambling. Really, Schlossnagle can throw out whoever he wants to start against Grambling, like any pitcher in that staff, no matter who they are and what their role is, and I think they'd be fine. They aren't. I would be willing to bet they aren't going Prager and Lampkin that first game. They're just not, and they don't really need to. I mean, if they can get someone like Tanner Jones to tune up a little bit more, maybe get a start out of Cortez if they'd like, or Rudis or Stewart or someone else, and that's, I think, the route they should go. And that was the question about them heading into this year. We said it time and time again, was the pitching, and it's come through this year, and they ended up second in RPI to end the season, and they're a top 5 national seed in the country.
Yeah, there's really no reason to linger with a struggling starter or even reliever with as many guys as they got. And they got some guys they can throw that aren't even on our list here. But that's A&M in a nutshell. So let's talk about Louisiana. And this is a team that can really, really pitch. I mean, this was a deep pitching staff. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see some of the numbers. The guy that stood out to me for them in that bullpen, LP Langevin, I guess is how you pronounce it. Kid struck out 100 guys this year. Is mostly a bullpen arm. Their starters were good. They got 3 starters, all with ERAs under 3.5. Although I'm not sure what's up with Andrew Herman, their lefty. He didn't pitch, I don't think, the last week in the year, and maybe not in the conference tournament. I can't find an update on him anywhere. So if you're in the comments looking at this and you give us an update on what's going on there, we'd appreciate it. But this is a pretty good pitching staff. Again, guys who keep the ball in the park, and that's something you want to do against the Aggies. Now, the hitting, probably not as strong as the pitching, but they got some guys here, Kyle DeBarge, that really had a phenomenal season. They don't take a lot of walks. They're up there to swing the bats. But this is a Louisiana team that just based on the pitching alone can make it interesting in a weekend.
Yeah, they definitely can. I'm looking at those home run rates for their pitching. There's a good few that are under 1%, which is a very, very, very good mark to have. I guess Chase Morgan, their number 1 guy. Blake McGehee under there. Is that who that is? Yeah, Blake McGehee right there. Blake Marshall deep into their bullpen. Morgan and Marshall are southpaws too, so they can switch things up as well. That's looks like a little righty heavy bullpen or just staff in general from what they have. But again, I think that they're a challenging bunch. We talk about the Sun Belt and how small ball a lot of those teams play. Louisiana definitely fits that category. So they're going to be wanting to steal on the bases, although those stolen base numbers aren't what I would think they'd be with them. But that's usually what I hear about Louisiana when I think about that team. And, just looking ahead at the on-base percentages, they have some high ones up there. Kyle DeBarge looks like he's their best hitter by far, just basing it off of this. Josh Taylor, their second baseman, is a very good player as well. And they can make it interesting. They surely can switch things up, and you're going to have to hit very well against that team. And I think A&M, for example, let's just use them. They have the lineup to do it, but it might not come by the home run ball as easy as they usually do it with.
All right, let's talk about Texas. Not often you see Texas as a 3 seed in the NCAA Baseball Tournament, but that's what the Longhorns are. A team with a lot of power in that lineup. Now, the pitching, maybe not vintage Texas pitching, which is probably why this team was a 3 seed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, too, looking at their pitching, though, the home run rate's still pretty good. Relatively speaking. Their bullpen is a lot of guys that don't give up the long ball. Cade O'Hara, Chase Loomis, going back up to their starters, Charlie Hurley, with a low home run rate as well, and a lot of good looking ERAs, a lot of half decent base runners per inning marks. Cade O'Hara is a very good righty from what I was gathering. The strikeouts aren't anything crazy, but he's pretty well, centered and can keep runs from coming across the plate. So he's pretty good. Where's he at? Right fielder Max Bellew was Big 12 Player of the Year. He's a very, very talented hitter. Pretty good with power. You see that slugging percentage up at 713, on base percentage nearly 450. He's the guy. I mean, in the Big 12, we talk about how the Big 12 was pretty offensive this year. Maybe why Texas's pitching numbers are a little bit different. I still think I don't know if they're going to come out of here, at all. Actually, in fact, I don't really think they are, but they're going to be a half decent threat for whoever they play. That first game they play against Louisiana is going to be very good. I think that's going to be one of the better 2-3 games, Texas and Louisiana. It's a really good matchup. My other concern about Texas, I'm looking at the strikeout rates for their hitters. There's a few of them that are high. Will Gasparino, 33%. Porter Brown, their left fielder, 24%. D. Kennedy, 26%. Jared Thomas also up there, 21%. So they strike out a good bit. So if Louisiana's pitching gets going, maybe Louisiana takes that game. But regardless, these two teams are kind of nifty and a good matchup for one another trying to play against A&M.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of great lefty arms out of Texas. That's one thing that stands out. You got a lot of lefty hitters in the 1-2 seeds in this tournament. So that may be something to watch, is how does Texas get outs against lefties? And kind of another note, Jack O'Dowd, speaking of SEC, he spent his first year or two at Vanderbilt. So he'll be getting, I don't know if they played Texas A&M when he was there, but there's another SEC connection at a time where we are mentioning a lot of SEC connections when it comes to Texas. All right, let's talk about Grambling. Not a ton that stands out here. I think this was probably the worst team to make the tournament. They got some guys that get on base up and down the lineup, but what you see in the SWAC is not what you see in this tournament with the pitching. I think the big thing you always watch for in these situations is, do they have an ace? Well, they got a guy that's really durable in Mason Martinez, their number one starter, who does keep the ball in the park, but he's not overpowering. After that, they've got Randy Reyes, a lefty, who I guess could pitch out of the bullpen. I mean, there's a scenario if they play 100 times where Grambling might have enough to win a game in this. Texas A&M's not an ideal matchup, but between those two pitchers. But after that, it looks kind of bleak on the pitching side.
Yeah, that's the hard part is, I'd imagine Grambling's going to throw Martinez out there against A&M to start, and that's a tall task. I mean, Martinez has had a great year, don't get me wrong. Strikeout rate 20%, a lot of innings. I mean, he pitched a lot for this team this year. Look at that, 112 compared to the rest of that staff. And I mean, you go down the staff and you go into Grambling's bullpen, a lot of high ERAs, especially at the bottom there, 9.42, 14.03, 19.38. 14.73, a lot of base runners per inning as well, giving up some of those guys are giving up 4 base runners an inning. Texas A&M's lineup's going to feast on that if those guys get into the game. So that's what I see from there. But going back up to their batting, just to talk about that for a sec, they have a few kind of nifty players. Jose Vargas, the switch hitter, doesn't strike out very often, walks a half decent bit. Not a power guy. You can see no home runs this season, but I think he's just a old school, base hit guy who can get on base and just really create chaos and just be that consistent, we need a hit here. Can you do it person? Martavius Thomas, he's also a switch hitter. He's the center fielder. Nifty guy as well, strikes out a decent bit, but does also walk a good bit as well. 12 stolen bases for him on the season. They have a few guys. The problem is I just think Texas A&M overpowers them completely. And as you've been saying, Chris, I mean, compared to every other team in this tournament, I don't know if they're better than anyone else in the tournament, period. So they are the SWAC champions. I'll give them that. But at the same time, they just don't have the pitching to contain A&M's lineup.
All right, let's talk about the who wins the regional conversation. I think obviously it is A&M's to lose. Mm-hmm. I look at a formula for where, something could generate a different outcome. I think anytime you got guys that can pitch and keep the ball in the yard like Louisiana, that's something to watch. Good pitching stops, good hitting. I don't know if theirs is good enough, but on paper it was plenty good this year. And then Texas, probably, I'm going to say maybe the best 3 seed in the tournament. Again, you got all those bats, the guys that hit home runs. They'll take some walks at certain spots in the lineup. I don't know that there's enough pitching, and that's what concerns me. I feel like I look at the staff, and it doesn't feel like a Texas staff. The bar's been set pretty high there historically, but A&M didn't really play offensively the last few weeks of the season the way we saw it play earlier in the year. A&M went 0 for 2 in the SEC tournament. I don't think that's a disqualifier. We've seen national champions do that, but I think you're going to have to see Braden Montgomery step it up a little bit back towards what he did at the first of the year. Now, I think even if Montgomery slumps over the weekend, the rest of the lineup is good enough. I guess if I had to pick a champ, I'm going to take A&M. I think this team is good enough to win the whole thing. I probably Texas is your runner-up and could challenge A&M with all that talent. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah. My first thought, I'll go back to this just to take this conversation off of A&M. That Louisiana Texas game is going to be very, very good. I think those two are going to go at each other very hard, and I like the little tidbit you said after I talked about Texas with there's a lot of lefty batters in Louisiana and Texas A&M's rosters, and Texas doesn't have the pitching to counteract that, and I think that's a big factor in this. In the end, I can't go against you on this is A&M's regional to lose. It is their regional to lose, and I think they're gonna, storm through this just fine. Again, if Texas A&M and Louisiana played 25 times, Louisiana might win 1 or 2 games, but in this short stretch of games, I think A&M walks out of here just fine. And we saw too, A&M, if they were to win. Just another side note, their super regional is, I believe, the Santa Barbara regional, which is not. I haven't watched any of those teams. It's a bunch of West Coast teams, but it's very favorable for A&M. So A&M could, kind of set themselves up for Omaha if they get through this region, and I think they do. So I'm going the Aggies with you, Chris.
Yeah, it's a little more interesting now that I've looked at it and talked about it. I don't think it's a cakewalk for A&M. I'm going to pick A&M to win, but I think that that Louisiana and Texas are both really good ball clubs, and I think that there's going to be 32 games that we watch on Friday. Well, we won't watch them all, but there's going to be 32 games on the schedule, and I think you could easily make an argument for Louisiana and Texas being a top 5 game of the day. So I'll be interested to see how that one turns out. Well, we're going to preview every single SEC team that is in a regional this weekend. Some will get their separate videos like this. Some will be lumped into one. Either way, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Check out our channel. We'll have all those to you. We'll have coverage throughout the tournament as finals roll in. Again, best way to do that, hit that subscribe and that like button. He is Alfred Ezman. I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14, presented by Bet Online.